Hi everyone, I hope you're doing well, and today's video I'm very excited to film because you all can correct me if I'm wrong, but I really, and I'm not just saying this, I can't remember the last time I've read a young adult book. Watch you go into my Goodreads and maybe it was a month ago, I don't know, but at least off the top of my head, I can't even remember the last young adult book I've read, and it's not that I have anything against YA, it's just not a section of the library that I gravitate towards, just since I generally gravitate towards pretty dark books. But a lot of you have been recommending this book to me, and I do want to just say two warnings before you watch this video up front. Number one, just trigger warnings for just any type of abuse you can imagine. This is a very dark book. And number two, I also want to warn you that I'm not going to be talking about any spoilers in this video, but this book has a very ending that a lot of people like to talk about. So there's probably going to be discussion about the ending in the comments. So just a warning that you can watch this video and you definitely will not be spoiled, but do be careful going to the comments. So a while back I was at Second and Charles, my favorite used bookstore, as you guys probably know, and I tweeted out, what are some of your favorite young adult thrillers or darker books that you think I should pick up? And The Last One Who Lied, Something About Liars, and the other was There's Someone in Your House. So I will be reading those down the road and maybe doing a battle of the YA thrillers. But a lot of you guys had recommended Sadie by Courtney Summers. This book, you know what, I should get into the summary first because I have so many thoughts about this, but again, no spoilers. But first, getting into the summary. So Sadie is, I believe she's 19 years old. She lives in a very, very small town in Colorado where they don't have a lot of money, and it's very hard for people to kind of excel and get out of this town. Her mother has abandoned them, so this nice older woman has kind of taken on caring for Sadie and her little sister Maddie. And Maddie is, I believe, again, I think she's 13 and Sadie's 19. Sadie has pretty much come in and taken on the motherly role and taking care of Maddie and raising her. And this is not a spoiler to say because it happens right at the beginning of the book, but Maddie is brutally murdered, and they never get into a ton of detail about how it happens, and they also have trouble locating who the killer is. But Sadie thinks that she knows who the killer is. So one perspective of the book is Sadie trekking kind of across the country in her car, tracking down, and I think the quote that she says is, "I'm going to kill the man who killed my sister." So that's her point of view. And then the other point of view is of Wes McCrae. He's a radio personality, and he hears of Sadie and that no one knows where Sadie is, and that her sister was murdered and they don't know who the killer is, all these horrible things. And so he decides to start interviewing people and trying to track down what happened to Sadie, what happened to Maddie. So you can read this book as an actual book, or you can listen to it as an audiobook, which that's what I did. That's what a lot of you recommended, because again, since Wes McCrae's point of view is a podcast, it's really interesting, and there are different voices that actually narrate each character. So getting into the prose, I was absolutely blown away by Courtney Summers' writing, and if you guys have any other books that are by Courtney Summers that you really like, please recommend them to me, because I thought the way especially that she wrote about grief was so powerful and so disturbing. It has been so long since I have been, I don't know if disturbed is the right word, because it's not as if you're reading this book and you're creeped out. Well, in certain parts you will be, but it's more so that this book is really just a gut punch, or so should I say a heart punch, because hearing what Sadie and Maddie have been through, and just Sadie's, I think one of the things she writes especially well is just Sadie's, just this visceral drive and pure hatred she's filled with for the man that she believes killed her little sister, and just the mental and physical anguish she feels. Like, it really did feel traumatic at times, and it's been so long since I've cared for a character as much as Sadie. And I think one of the reasons she does such a good job writing her is that objectively, and I just mean this objectively, Sadie is not really a likable character at all. She's pretty rude and aggressive and mean to everybody she's encountering, but obviously when you think about everything and as you're reading that she's been through, you understand how warranted it is. I also thought that the pacing was incredibly gripping. Again, it's told from two points of view. So from one point of view, which is in the future, Sadie is tracking down the killer. Again, she's meeting these people along the way. trying to track down this person and trying to figure out what happened to Maddie. Well, she's not trying to figure it out. She kind of has a guess for who killed her and she's trying to track him down. So she's meeting all of these different people throughout the country, and so there are these little vignettes of her meeting them, and it's just very gripping, especially because the other point of view is in the present, and it's Wes McCrae. He's heard no one knows where Sadie is, so he's trying to track her down. And so I'm blanking because I actually read this like a month ago, I want to say, so I'm blanking on what the time difference is. I'm not sure if it's weeks, a month, a few months, but Wes McCrae is a certain amount of time behind Sadie. So as it vacillates back and forth, you've already met the characters through Sadie that Wes McCrae is meeting. So for example, there's a young man, or I don't know if I should say boy, that Sadie meets, and so she has her interactions with him and discovers something, and then Wes McCrae meets him. And it's interesting because you're seeing the book told really well from these two different perspectives, Sadie's point of view and Wes's point of view. So again, those are the pros. I cannot recommend this enough, but again, it's a very depressing book. It's very hard to read, very, very just dark and, you know, a punch to the heart. So if you're looking for like a lighthearted kind of fun thriller, like I would consider Riley Sager's books like fun thrillers, if that makes sense. This is not that. This is just very dark, very disturbing, so you've got to be in the mood to enjoy this type of book. Now getting into the cons. So my first one, if you're listening to this as an audiobook, which again I do really recommend, most of the narrators are wonderful. The woman who voices Sadie is great, the man who voices Wes McCrae is great, but I'm not going to name exactly which ones, just on the off chance those voice actors for some reason come across this video. But some of the like minor characters, and again, they only show up for probably like 10-15 minutes total of the book, are terrible. Like it really feels like you can just see the script in front of them. And again, because these characters are meant to be talking live as if this is really happening, you know, they're acting, but it just feels like, yes, I saw Sadie on Tuesday. She was the girl with the stutter, right? And it just feels like really cringy, and I would say like 2 or 3 people who really sound terrible, and it kind of took me out of it, but again, it doesn't take up a ton of the book. And the other con, and I didn't know whether I should put this in cons because for me it's not a con, I'm only putting it in the con section because for a lot of people I know that it is. So I'm going to be talking about the ending, but again, I'm going to be very vague, and if you haven't read the book, this isn't going to spoil it for you. So I will just say up front, if you're the type of person where you want, you know, this is at its core, even though it's a thriller, it's more really a mystery novel. If you're the type of person who likes, you know, an Agatha Christie style ending where everything is figured out and you know what everybody's role was in the situation and what happened, and you basically just want your endings really concrete and tied off with a bow, this is not the book for you. And again, I almost don't want to say that because I don't want people to not read this if they don't like kind of open-ended endings, but I do think that's just something to let you know in advance, because I know a lot of people actually ended up really disliking the book because they got the end and they were just like, where's the rest of the book? And I had that reaction as well. But for me personally, it did not bother me because I think that this is what happens with a lot of crime, so I think it actually just made the book feel all the more realistic. So that is my review of Sadie by Courtney Summers. Again, I cannot recommend this enough. It's rare that I give a book 5 stars. I think you guys know that. Please let me know if you've read it, what your thoughts were on this, because I know it's a pretty divisive book, although on the whole, I think people also really love it. And also let me know, are there any books you'd recommend that are YA thrillers that you think I'll like if I liked this? Are there any other books by Courtney Summers you would recommend? So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.